mamas and mamas to be. This is the podcast that is going to take you into the Hen House. We are talking all things intuitive and mindful living and mothering, as well as preventing birth trauma and healing from birth trauma. We are bringing you real talk, real connection, real community, and hopefully some real inspiration as well.
We are your hosts, Andrea
and Chantal.
And if you're ready, it's time to jump into the Hen House. Welcome back, everyone. We're so happy to have you here. I am absolutely thrilled with today's guest. I have Sarah Seo joining me today, and she is one of my favorite people in this whole entire world, and such a lovely, lovely human, and so full of compassion and kindness. She is a mom of two, under 3, so she has a very busy and chaotic and wonderful life. And Sarah, I am just beyond thrilled to have you here. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here and get to talk to you and just, be part of your podcast. That's what you're doing is amazing. So excited to be part of it.
Thank you. Yeah. So we had kind of, I guess how this conversation topic kind of got triggered was we had been talking a little bit about like some of the insanity in the world, which I think no matter where or when or how you live, there's always been and probably will always be some level of insanity somewhere in the world. And how do we stay calm? How do we stay grounded? How do we stay open and loving and connected? Because that's really where peace comes from and where connection comes from. And how do we move into a more Zen state and a more balanced state and a more loving state, even if there's lots of things kind of going on?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how this triggered, but kind of share how about just jump in and share some of your thoughts?
Okay.
With that.
Well, I really love this topic because I feel like this is kind of an endless thing, like rabbit hole that I could just go down. I feel like there's a lot to unpack within this topic. So I recently started listening to a book called Good Inside by, I'm having trouble remembering her last name, but it's like Dr. Becky.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
And it's like definitely a parenting book, but I have gained a lot of personal insight and just not just me as a parent, but how I relate to myself. And one of the things that really stood out to me was about anxiety. Because I feel like anxiety is partially like the opposite of Zen. There's so many other things within that too that are opposite of Zen, but like it's a big one for me. Mm-hmm. And she talked about how anxiety starts from the feeling or the thought that whatever I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing needs to be different. It needs to change. So that really struck me because I definitely have struggled with anxiety from either external factors of the chaos that I see and feel, but also the chaos within myself. And I love that explanation of anxiety gives me the opportunity to sit with whatever I am experiencing. And in sitting with all of that, I start to experience a level of peace because I give myself permission to have a lot of feelings. And then as I feel all of it, I can figure out what to do next. And so that goes into strategies to not necessarily like move away, but to almost like transmute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So grounding is always like a quick one to just settle into myself and my body.
Mm-hmm.
So getting outside,
And you do that with your kids quite a bit, right? Like going outside, getting feet on the earth and stuff like
definitely
that, right?
try to make that, like something that we do often. It's harder when it's so cold, but even then I find that like they kind of like the thrill of a little cold.
A little chill.
It's exhilarating.
That's funny. Yeah, no, I've definitely that's something I have started kind of as we've come into a little bit warmer weather, and as she's been wanting to walk more, it's like lots of time in the yard. Even if we don't go anywhere, it's like we can stand in the yard, and currently she's pulling dandelions, and I'm like, this is great.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just hang out in the front yard and pull dandelions.
I love it.
But,
Niles
it's
loves
like,
dandelions.
right, get all the all the goodness out of it.
Yes.
But that's amazing, and I think that there's so much wisdom in that, in just noticing what you feel and being okay to feel.
Yes.
And that's something I feel like also people get very caught up in. You feel this, but that's not reasonable. You have no reason to feel that. And it's kind of like an experience is an experience, and that doesn't help with anxiety, which you may already, one person might already be feeling.
Yeah.
And it's like to then say, oh, well, this isn't a reasonable feeling, so therefore I can't feel it.
Right.
It's like, well, that's just not helpful.
It's not helpful. Yeah, that judgment component is arguably part of like that's a large factor in the anxiety.
Yeah.
And it's that feeling of like I shouldn't be feeling this. I shouldn't like this is unreasonable, or like I should figure out a way to not be feeling this, like or like if there's something wrong with me that I am feeling this, all of these kind of judgments that are from external or internal, or external that have become internal. So it's and there's so much more to your question than just anxiety, right? There's like
yeah, and I do think anxiety is something one that's plaguing people around the world right now. Like anxiety and depression are both up significantly, which is really something to consider, I think, as from a societal perspective. But I think anxiety amongst moms is like it's genuinely a big deal.
Yes.
And it gets made wrong. Like even I was very, very early postpartum, and I was having definitely anxiety coming down the stairs, which I think is actually relatively common.
Yes.
And some of it, but I had just told my neighbor or something like that, just in very casual conversation. And she's like, that's postpartum anxiety. You need to see someone about that. And it's like, well, I don't know. Do I? I'm not sure. Like, I went from like all the way out here to all of a sudden not. My center of
Mhm.
gravity, I had severe anemia afterwards where I would
Mhm.
get super dizzy just walking on the flat surface. I'm going, is it, like, is it really entirely unreasonable? And is that helping me? Or is there ways to like work up to it gradually or gain my confidence in other ways over
Right.
something that's, relatively simple, but that isn't seeming simple?
Mhm.
Like it's an interesting thing because I think it's very easy to just throw a label on it and go, oh, you have anxiety.
Right.
But yet there's always more under the surface.
Mhm.
And part of why I love the word Zen, I actually, I, I was like, I don't know, I'm like, at some point in the future, I'm like, maybe I'll have a chiropractic office named Zen Life Chiropractic. I'm
Oh,
like,
I
because
love
that's a good name. But,
it.
but I like the word Zen because it's not just about being calm, which I think it
Mhm.
gets referred to, but it's
Right.
about finding that perfect balance
Mm.
of that perfect blend, that perfect harmony
Mm.
between everything. And I think
Mhm.
in that, there has to be an acknowledgement of also the emotional aspects of things and an
Yes.
okayness with that part of things.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and an honoring of that. And I think
Yes.
exactly what you said, as we embrace our quote unquote dark side
Mhm.
or crazy side or anxious side, in embracing that and creating space for that to be okay,
Mhm.
we find more harmony.
Mhm. Definitely. And your anxiety, like postpartum, about going down the stairs, to me sounds like a very like sort of I'm looking for. I mean, it's a very valid um fear of, there's some difficulty with vertigo and not feeling completely like at home in your body, like still
Mhm.
trying to find that literal balance, like physical
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah.
And so that to me makes a lot of sense that I felt that coming down the stairs just as a new mom because of what you said about our body changes so
Yeah.
much drastically.
Yeah. And then you're
Um,
holding this precious little
yes.
cargo and you don't want to fall because that would be really unfortunate for everyone
Yeah, for
involved.
everybody
Right. So
involved.
it's, and I think it's also moms have a lot of wanting really, really, really to do everything right
Yes.
and to really show up well. And that can
Yes.
feel, I think, like a lot of pressure
Hmm.
as
You know,
well.
I coincidentally was just reading a little bit by that author. She did, I don't think it was a podcast, but it was an interview. And it was like there was a transcription of it. So I was just briefly skimming it last night. And it was talking about moms specifically having um, a lot of pressure, feeling a lot of pressure, feeling a lot of judgment from other moms to be the perfect mom, to be the perfect parent. And I didn't. It was very late, and so my brain started shutting down. So I didn't get all the way through it. But I did think it was so interesting because it was talking about in like the 80s and 90s, it was, or a little bit before that, it was so different. It was a lot more community oriented,
Mm-hmm.
where people weren't quite as afraid to let the community be part of the parenting. And then I think it was maybe they were saying in the 80s and 90s it started changing. People got afraid of other people. Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
there's a predator that, like if I send my child to be to this person's house, like there's so much unknown, and which to me is understandable. And also I think it was just trying to bring attention to the fact that our awareness and our heightened like fear state is so different than it used to be. And so a lot of us are parenting from a lot more anxiety and fear, and because there's a lot of cultural change that has happened. And so not to say that moms before didn't feel a lot of anxiety. I haven't been a mom that I know of in those time periods, like in a past life before this. But so I can't speak to the anxiety that moms have felt in the past, but they were saying collectively from what they have observed, there's a lot more anxiety within moms now than there used to be. And what you were saying about anxiety and depression being so much more prevalent, I feel like that Zen piece is connectedness. That's part of my Zen, is feeling not only connected to other people, but a connectedness to myself, which starts to connect me outward. And I hope my tangents kind of...
Oh, no, this is great. Yeah, no, so I love that connectedness, because I feel like there's a number of pieces to connection, and yet connection is so key. And even I love the work of Dr. Barbara Fredrickson. She talks a lot about like the emotion of love, and she talks about how like if you feel connected and like you're having positive social interactions and positive connection, how that can shift your day, how that will literally shift your health. And in so many ways, like how our physical health and our emotional and social health are so connected. And so I think, though, if we're not connected to ourselves, it's so much harder to connect to anyone or anything else.
Absolutely.
And there is, so it's like connection to self, connection to source or God, or you know, if people have that belief, right, to that. And then there's connection to other people. And then I think what tends to get forgotten also is connection to the earth.
Yes.
Which for me is kind of, those are like the four.
Yes.
For connection. 1 second.
Definitely, yeah. Mom life has been part of like me just going with things. Like I'm already like more naturally kind of easy.
You're pretty easygoing.
Yeah.
Anyways, I would say I mean, you and me both are pretty welcome to go with the flow.
Right. But I think like mom life, it really just amplifies like, okay, let's just roll with it. Let's go with it. And
sometimes it's not worth the argument. It's like, okay, I want it this way, but why do I want it or need it this way? Is it really, is this unsafe? Is this really a big deal? Or is it just in my head, I think it should be this way? And
definitely.
so sometimes
challenges those like the set of almost not beliefs, but almost like the beliefs
or something.
Yeah. That are just kind of like in there and haven't been challenged. That it's just like when we kind of get in our rote like decision making. But then
we've always done it a certain way.
Right.
So and it's like, well, maybe it actually doesn't need to be that way.
Yeah.
Maybe it could be any way. Maybe there's less of a right way. And more what works for this moment, what works for right now,
Yes.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that mom life has really challenged that. It challenges me in that way, like nothing else has.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I forgot to say in the introduction, but you are also a brilliant yogi. Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
that's how I would say
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Oh,
And so let's talk about intentional movement
okay.
for a little bit, because I know that's a really big piece of your life and how you find balance and how you keep your body healthy and feeling good.
Absolutely.
Um,
I think,
and
sorry.
so yeah, so just tell me a little bit about that, like how that helps you shift the energy, how it helps you reconnect to yourself. Like, what is your philosophy on movement?
Um, I feel like this is a perfect segue from the last question into this because they're like really related in my mind. Um, so I use movement in so many ways. I think that there's the way that, like yoga, like exercise, um, that kind of intentional movement, it does help move stagnant energy for me. Anything that feels kind of stuck, emotionally and physically. Um, if I can just create some movement in my body, that's not just like what we typically do, like habitual kind of um, movement that is what we do just normally, but like intentional movement. It brings us back into our body. It brings me back into my body, which is a connectedness, like we were talking about. It helps me connect to myself in so many ways. I think I feel like I've talked with you about how people process things differently. To a certain extent, we all process things in our body. To a certain extent, we all process things emotionally, mentally. There's all different ways that we're going to process things. Some people, I think, process more in their body, feel things more specifically. And then some people are more in the mental space, um, or emotional. But I do feel that when we connect to our body, it connects us holistically. And for me specifically, um, being able to do something that connects my mind to my body is one of the most like grounding and powerful things that I can do. And it can also be really small. It doesn't have to be like a whole yoga routine or a workout or like going for a walk even. It can be something as small as intentionally breathing and feeling my lungs move. It can be just taking a moment to like move my head because I'm feeling like tension in my neck and um, moving my shoulders. Like when I'm with my children and I just need a minute for myself, it can be like getting into a like a downward dog position just for a few minutes, or
Yeah.
you know, any small simple thing. I think sometimes I feel like it has to be a certain way, but it
Yeah.
you don't always have time, or
Yeah. And I think small children teach us so much about movement,
yes.
because it's like we'll be sitting and playing, and all of a sudden my daughter, who's 18 months now, and she's been doing this for a while, all of a sudden she'll be in a little downward dog and
Yes.
kind of move a little bit, and then she's off to doing something else again.
Yeah.
Or all of a sudden she'll just look all the way up at the ceiling and like a nice stretch, and then off to do whatever. And I'm going, wow, like this is just, she's just like, oh, I need a little stretch. And so she just does it.
Yep.
And it's like, I get that, in a workplace or, school setting or these more structured settings, we maybe can't do that. But like as moms, if we're at home with our small children, it's like, why can't we do just what they do? And it's like,
Right.
oh, she's reminding me it's stretching time. Oh, okay, let me
Right.
do a downward dog too. And then she'll get out of hers, see me in one, and she'll go back and do another one.
I think that doing yoga, like to any capacity with my children, it always like is eye-opening for me how receptive they are to like new things, and just kind of like and a lot of the time if I start doing something, either they'll join in and imitate, or they'll like jump on top of me, and
Right?
it's like, like fun kind
One
of.
or the other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Take your exercises carefully. It could be dangerous with little children. If they come launching at you and you're in like a weird twist or something, but
Yeah. But
yeah,
that's just rolling with it, like we were talking about.
right. And you're like, okay, well, we're gonna make this work. But I love that so much, and I think movement is just so key, and so key for helping us just be happier
Yes.
in general. Just like that
Absolutely.
natural, like finding that natural rhythm of movement through the day. And so years ago, this was a long time ago, you had said this, but your oldest had already been born, and I don't remember how old he was. He was still pretty little, like maybe 6 months or something like that. And your family had kind of been going through like a bit of a grieving process at the time. And I remember you saying something really powerful, because you had said like you were still doing your yoga and your movement, but you were doing it in such a restorative way. And you were really including your son with that. And it was just, it really made an impression on me. And so can you touch on it a little bit, like as far as adapting movement to like really fuel what's needed and to truly support? Because I also feel like with moms, there's so much pressure to move lots, move
Right.
big, lose weight, get
Right.
strong, get fit. And there's not a lot of focus on each day is different, each minute is different. And some days maybe you're up for a 3-mile walk, and other days walking to the mailbox, you're like, that is a feat.
Yes.
And finding space for the change, like the vast amount of change, and whether it's physical or emotional, or you didn't sleep well, or whatever it is, because I feel like you have a lot of wisdom with that.
I do remember that like my grandpa had just passed at that time. I believe, if I'm recalling correctly, that's what was happening at that time. And I, touching on my breath work, I was doing more just, this is like accepting that breath work was really what was connecting me the most to what I needed. And which a lot of days I feel like if I can just connect to my breath in a meaningful way, in a thoughtful way, then that is the biggest step that I can take toward like what I need. And at that time, So there's a lot of different pranayamas in yoga, like breath practices that we can do. One of the really restorative ones is Nadi Shodhana, which is like alternate nostril breathing, where you use your fingers to close off one nostril and breathe in and out, alternating your breath through your nostrils. And I was doing a lot of that, which is very balancing for your nervous system and body. And doing like a longer exhale. You don't even have to do the alternate nostril breathing to lengthen your exhale longer than your inhale. And even just that, which I do most days, try to remember to do that. Even when I'm just sitting with my children, like remember that I can relax my nervous system through thoughtfully lengthening my exhales. And definitely, I think that when we're able to honor where we are emotionally, physically, mentally, with our movement, we are able to create like a trust within ourselves, of like, I'm going to honor myself where I am. And that gives us more capacity for, I think, like everything. When we're able to create that trust relationship with like, I don't need my movement to look a certain way because of what somebody else says that I might need, or what I'm trying to compare myself to other people. Like, oh, this mom, sorry, my brain kind of goes all over the place with tangents, but
no, that's good. Roll with the tangents. Rabbit holes are great.
I know that for me, sometimes I go on Instagram, social media, and I see these mom accounts that are like, this is what my life looks like. And they, are working out with their child, or like they're so trim after having a baby. And it looks like this perfect picture of what I feel like I should look like, what my life should look like. And I have to just remind myself that, and give myself permission to honor where I am. Like, a lot of days I'm very tired, and my intentional movement is going to be trying to do laundry in a way that is like thoughtful. Like,
Yeah.
even just, doing the dishes in a way where I'm like, okay, I'm doing it in a thoughtful way.
Right. And it might even just be, okay, I'm going to hold my core intentionally,
Yeah.
or really expand my rib cage as I breathe while I'm doing this small thing that needs to get done today.
Absolutely. I think breath is like, I come back to that because it is so extremely powerful. And it's something that a lot of the time the majority of the time, our breath is something we're not thinking about. It's something that is automatic. But when we can make it something that's a little bit more intentional, like that movement becomes it's so powerful. Like it's a foundational element for everything. You actually introduced me to the book Breath by
Yeah. Oh, I
James
forget.
Nestor.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I think so. Yeah.
And I just recently started listening to that again. And the amount that our breath influences everything is mind blowing. It's like our health. It's everything.
Yeah, it's everything.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think it's very correlated also to our stress levels and how we integrate stress and adapt to stress in our bodies. Because
Mhm.
there's also a really interesting book, something about the polyvagal theory by somebody Porges. Again, that's the best I can do. I don't remember names or titles apparently. Um, but he talks a lot about even like what you had talked about the long exhale
Right.
that stimulates the polyvagal system, which is the vagus nerve out of the brain
Yes.
stem. And as it kind of comes down, and it's this super big web of nerves that kind of go
Right.
through a really big part of the body and a lot of the visceral functions.
Mhm.
But I think in that book, he had talked about like with a more, with a better tone of the vagal system, it's easier to make friends. It's
Mm.
easier to maintain your relationships. It's easier to manage your stress.
Mm.
And a big way you can do that is the longer exhale.
Mhm.
And he would say, you know, even if you're really anxious and breathing feels like it's like making me more nervous to focus on that, he said, then sing along with someone like, and so I'll do sometimes like Celine Dion because she has these like insanely long
Yes.
like holds on notes and you're like, my goodness, that was like 3 minutes, how can you hold your breath that long? um but like that, like it forces the exhale but in a way you're maybe not thinking of as much. Or
Right.
he said you start talking and when you want to stop you just keep like extending your sentence until you're like, you know, until you just literally can't anymore. And do that a few times and then try focusing on your breathing. And it might be easier. But that really stuck out to me. I was like, that's really kind of funny. And
Yes. That's amazing. I love that. Singing is definitely one of the, like, I feel like hacks for the vagus nerve. Um, like because of that, like elongating
yeah.
your exhale in a controlled way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just like the act of singing in general, right, is helpful for engaging the vagus nerve.
Yeah. I mean, it's, yeah. And singing is just fun too.
Yeah, it
So
is
for
fun.
people who like to sing, it's like, it's fun. It's fun to sing.
One of the other things that I don't do it as much anymore, but I remember in college I would like buzz my lips like,
Oh, yeah.
and that I would do it for as long as I could. And it drove my
Yeah.
roommate insane. She was like, "Can you please just not do that anymore?" But for any time I was extremely stressed,
Mm-hmm.
that was the best hack for me because
Oh, that's really fun.
yeah, it was like my face would get relaxed because your face
Yeah.
muscles are just like having to relax, and your exhale is really long. And I kind of, I've never heard of that as a pranayama, but I feel like it should be.
It really could be. Yeah.
Yeah, because that like is, I'll still do it every now and then. It's just not as frequent as I used to. But
Right.
um,
That's really fun though.
and
And I
another
think
good one,
that's, yeah, I mean, but that's just such a good example of finding what works for you.
yeah.
Like in playing, like having fun with it, like finding something fun that
Yes.
helps. Yeah.
Um, Another good one, which is a pranayama, but I feel like it's kind of just fun if you can like roll your tongue into like the like hot dog or whatever. You can breathe in and out. And
Oh, that's interesting. I've never heard of that one.
yeah, I think it's like a sitali. I think that's what it's called. And it's cooling because you have to breathe slowly, and the air is cooled because of the wetness of your tongue. And it's just so I feel like that one's kind of a fun one too, because it's like hard to take yourself seriously when you're
You got
breathing
your tongue stuck out.
yeah.
That's really fun. Oh, I love that. I'd never heard of that one. See, I'm learning. I love this. Yeah.
So that's a fun one.
That is fun. So let's talk a little bit about the emotion of love,
Okay.
because I feel like that's also it's so expansive when and if we can focus on love, I feel like there becomes less room and space for all of the anxiety and all of the, quote unquote, lesser vibrational emotions kind of thing. And it just helps us bring, and it's, again, this is, Barbara Fredrickson, but she talks about, like, if you focus on love, then all of a sudden you get more interest and joy and like connection, and just all these other positive emotions build with it, because it's hard not to bring more good into your life and into your mind and body when you're really focused on that.
Yes.
So kind of what does that kind of look like for you? Like as a mother, as dealing with other mothers, as, in your relationship, just kind of how do you bring kind of that energy and feeling of love into your life? Because I know you do.
I feel like I am going to end up sounding slightly like a narcissist, but like I feel like so much of it is self-love. Like that's such a building block foundation for me, like foundational building block, because I do feel like as a mom, it's so easy, not so easy, but like we love our children so much, and we pour a lot of love and care and thought into our children. And I find that giving myself permission to recognize that I need love and I need to love myself, and like show myself love. And the way that I do that, it looks different. But going back to the Good Inside book, I think she defines self-care as like making a promise to yourself and keeping it. So that's that trust, like forming trust. And I love that like very actionable definition of self-care, because I feel like it can be like self-care looks like going for a walk, or self-care looks like washing your face, or like whatever. But I feel like if I say like I want to sit down for my meal, that and like making time for myself to do that, it's really as a mom, I feel like that used to be, before I was a mom, was like yeah, that's just a given, like I'm going to sit down and eat my food. But now it's like just running and trying to like keep up. And so carving out that space for myself is kind of big. But like getting back to specifically love, I find that like I really have to make sure that my cup is full so that it can transfer into everyone else that is around me that I want to like show love and feel love for. And I think it's like all of these topics to me are so interconnected. Like if I can be grounded in my body, that helps me be grounded in who I am and like coming to this acceptance of just this is me and this is where I am, and it doesn't have to be something that I am like that I'm not like that. This not to say that we can't want to better ourselves, because that's just part of being human. We want to, I think that's obviously very healthy that we want to continue bettering ourselves, but that's a positive thing. It doesn't have to be like a negative, like it should be this.
Right. It's more of the natural evolution of things as you go through life and as you learn. There's self-growth that will happen, and to embrace that is a wonderful thing.
Mm.
And I feel like what I'm hearing is you say that, but just because you're seeking self-growth doesn't mean you're not good enough already.
Yes.
You don't have to do anything to be enough.
Yes.
Or okay, or good, or...
I think, I mean, for me personally, I feel a lot of pressure a lot of the time to be a certain way, and it comes just from my own belief system that has been created over my lifetime and is still kind of being created through like different things that I consume. And so I think that love component is just, acceptance of like, I am enough. And the more I can reiterate that in myself, and the more I can just embody that, the more I'm going to be able to have space for other people to feel the same way, the more I'm able to have space for other people to just show up as they are, and not I find like with my children, the more I'm like embracing who I am, I feel like with children, it's easier for me to accept them as they are, because I'm like, they're perfect. They're like my little angel babies. And, but, Niles is going through this phase of knocking Maya down.
Okay.
Because he is feeling that, like he's the older brother. There's, because he's older, there's some more responsibility, because he knows, like when we tell him, don't knock your sister down, please, like he understands what that means. So, and Maya's not pushing him down at the moment because she's not big enough and just doesn't have the urge to do that. But, he gets a little bit jealous or frustrated that she's touching his toys. And so the way he can control his environment is physically.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, being able to like balance like trying to be the best parent for him, like what does that look like in that moment of
Mm-hmm.
um like sorry, trying to put words to what's happening up here.
Yeah.
But I want him to know that he is perfect and what he is experiencing is perfectly natural and what he's thinking and everything. And then also
Mm-hmm.
that behavior is not acceptable because I can't let him hurt his sister.
Right.
Not safe for either of them.
Right. Right.
Um,
Well, the difference between behavior and who you are,
mhm. Yes,
and
exactly.
separating
Exactly.
those pieces,
Yes.
and helping, I think, children regulate and
Mhm.
find better alternatives, because their brain is just not very well developed in
No,
impulse control yet.
no,
Really not at all.
at all.
They're that little,
No.
it's, so it's like taking the responsibility instead of making him wrong, to
Mhm.
rather be like, I'm going to take responsibility.
Yes.
And yes, this behavior isn't allowed. So I'm going to do this or that so this behavior doesn't continue.
Right.
And that way no one gets hurt. But you
Yeah.
are still a wonderful, wonderful human, you know.
Exactly.
And we're learning that you can't just push people every time you want to, right? Like
I hope that makes sense with like connects fully to where we were going with that. But
Yeah. But I think that's also modeling and demonstrating love for your children too,
yeah.
and that they can love themselves
Mhm.
regardless of perfections or imperfections or behavior or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And that's a really beautiful thing. And so,
Yes. Yes.
yeah. Well, I have a crying baby downstairs. So, do
Oh.
you have any final thoughts before I have to hop off?
Um, I don't think so. I feel like those are I feel like we really covered a lot of it. I think I didn't really say how I feel like you are such a magical human being, and I'm just so grateful to know you and always excited to talk with you. I feel like your insight is just beyond.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
so I'm really grateful for you putting together this podcast. And
Yeah. Well, thank you. And thank you so much for coming on. I love your brilliance. You bring
oh,
so much to the table.
thank you.
And I really love that. I think all of us as individuals bring so much to the
Yes,
table, and
yes.
everybody has a unique experience and a unique perspective
Mm.
that is magical and wonderful in its way. I love to be able to honor that with each
Definitely.
person.
Oh,
So,
I love
so
that.
thank you, Sarah. It's
Thank
so good to
you.
see you
So good to
too.
see you
It's so
too.
good. Yeah. And thank you to all of our lovely listeners. We really appreciate you being here and joining us till the very end. Um, and if you want to connect with Sarah in any way, I will find out from her what she wants that to look like, and I will put it in the show notes. All right. Have a beautiful day. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Thank you for being here today. If you are loving this podcast, please go ahead and subscribe, and we would love if you would leave us a review. Sending so much love for you into this week, and we will see you soon.